Hello, everyone. So I'm just waiting for the room to fill up. Today I'm going to be talking to Kevork Almasyan. He is a journalist and he has been very vocal about the coverage that he was doing about the Artsakh war, about the Syrian war, and I'm really excited to have him on. I think he's here already. So, Kevork is joining right now. Hi, Kevork.
Hi, Jessica.
How are you?
I'm good, and you?
I'm good, thank you. Hold on, I'm just adjusting my camera a bit. There. How have you been?
I'm doing fine. It's a work day, but we're doing home office. There's still a lockdown here in Germany and Berlin, and it seems like till April, May, the lockdown will continue. I hope it would be lifted sooner, but unfortunately not.
Yeah, I mean, here too, we're suffering the same thing. We've been on lockdown now since September 27th, actually, since the war started. And I don't think it's ending anytime soon. But it's okay. It's giving us time to concentrate on important things and Armenia. And I'm really excited to have you on today. So I'm sure everyone already knows you. I mean, you're a public figure. You've been so vocal about the war, your coverage of the war, your coverage of Syria. But I wanted to maybe give you like a few minutes to tell the people that maybe don't know your work a little bit about yourself.
First of all, I'm very humbled to be your guest. I already followed a few live streams of yours, and I think it's really important now to use the tools we have, especially social media, in order to network with like-minded people or either with people that we disagree with. However, it's always important for us as Armenians or of any nationalities to debate and discuss together, because this is how we enrich our civilization. And I invite all Armenians to listen to each other, because whether we agree or not, at the end of the day, this storm of ideas that we are publishing, whether on Twitter or Facebook or in any other platform, this will enrich our country or our nation, which is Armenia. So when we try, some Armenians, let's say, have become a little bit dictatorial during and after the war. And unfortunately, these elements are coming from people who claim to be the Democrats or to be championing democracy in Armenia. However, to go back a little bit, I was born and raised in Aleppo, Syria, in northern Syria. And I studied international relations and diplomacy in Damascus. And the university sent me to Paris because I had the highest GPA in my university. And I studied European affairs. And later I studied in Lebanon at the University of Balamand, Master of Political Science. Currently, I'm based in Berlin. I started like writing opinion articles, reportages, etc. for Lebanese newspapers, Safir and Al-Akhbar at the beginning. Later, I became an anchor and a producer in one of the TV channels in Lebanon. And finally, when I moved in Germany, I started my own business. I have my own platform called Syriana Analysis. It was basically meant to cover the Syrian war, because I had the impression that any war has two sides of a story. So the mainstream media was unfortunately covering only from one side. So I felt that I have the responsibility to fill this vacuum, because I'm Syrian, also of Armenian origins, and I was born and raised there. So maybe I could present a different perspective of what's going on in Syria. And thankfully, I created my own brand. Syrian Analysis is now known for those who want to follow the Syrian case. But recently, when the Artsakh war erupted, I don't claim to be expert on the Artsakh situation, but if you study geopolitics in university and you check the geography of the area or the conflicted area in Nagorno-Karabakh and try to see the roots, the geography, the population, the military might, and the ideologies and everything, you can make sense of what's going on there.
Right.
I've been warning since 2016. And unfortunately, like I was warning during the era of the Electric Yerevan movement, that these social demands shouldn't be translated into geopolitical change in Armenia, because if you want to demonstrate against corruption in Armenia, why do you involve geopolitical issues such as spreading negative sentiments against Russia? Because whether you like Russia or not, whether you like Putin or like, this is something different. Maybe you consider him an evil, but he could be a necessary evil for you.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, this is something we're going to touch on during this hour that we have together. But I think to start off, I wanted to ask you, because I already know, because I've been following you for a while, like I already know your stance when it comes to Nikol Pashinyan and the things you had said about where he went wrong. But how about we start with that? Tell me your stance when it comes to Nikol, and what do you think happened during the Artsakh war, in your opinion? Was it mismanagement or was it just blatant treason?
actually, we need to go back a little bit to the Velvet Revolution, okay? Even before the Velvet Revolution, there was a consistent work, even during the era of Serge Sarkisyan or his predecessors, through certain non-governmental organizations in order to change the identity of the Armenians. So they started to hit the national identity of Armenia and try to portray anyone who champions nationalism, let's say. And here nationalism in Armenia is different from nationalism in Europe, for example, because the nationalism in Armenia is a defensive mechanism in order to unite and unify your people against an outside threat.
Right.
But when the right-wing nationalism in Europe, for example, turns into fascism, that was an expansionist power. Those are two different things. But some non-governmental organizations tried to convince the people that they shouldn't be proud of being an Armenian, or try to convince them that they can live in peace and harmony with their neighborhood. At this time, when the Armenians were changing domestically in how they see their neighborhood, the neighbors, Azerbaijan and Turkey, they were going to right-wing fascism and political Islam. And here I'm completely differentiating between political Islam and Islam, because political Islam is using the religion in order to further or advance your political interests. And this is what Erdogan was doing in the last decade or more.
Right.
So when the neighbors were buying weaponry worth of billions of dollars and equipping themselves with fascist ideologies, we were giving the people the impression in Armenia that they can maybe fight their neighborhood with roses or with compassion or with love or these idealistic ideas. I myself, I belong to the realist school of approach, and that has a reason, because in a geography where Armenia is located and Nagorno-Karabakh is located, it's not Switzerland. If you're in Switzerland, you can even, you don't need an army because your neighbors are not going to attack you and you don't have territorial disputes. But when you are in the Southern Caucasus or in Nagorno-Karabakh, and on your eastern side is Azerbaijan, that is on daily basis indoctrinating its people to kill and slaughter Armenians, and on your western side is Turkey, that is direct and strategic ally of Azerbaijan, which played an instrumental role in the last war. Then when you indoctrinate your people for this liberal or neoliberal ideas that both Pashinyan into power because he had a mass support during the 2018 revolution. But this support came because of this indoctrination that was before the Velvet Revolution. In my opinion, Pashinyan, I resonate him with Saakashvili of Georgia. Similar characters, very manipulative. They can give very beautiful speeches, but
right.
deep inside they are empty. They're manipulative, and they don't know any shit about geopolitics. And the proof of that was what happened in the last war in Nagorno-Karabakh, where Pashinyan was calling. Trudeau was calling, Angela Merkel was calling everyone else except for Putin. And when he called Putin, Putin knows that Pashinyan was working in the last 2.5 years against him. And even under Pashinyan, Armenia voted several times against Russia in international meetings. And he appointed many anti-Russian politicians in senior positions. So of course, Putin, I even watched one of the videos of Putin. Pashinyan calls Putin, I think on the 5th or the 6th day of the war, and Putin was on a phone call or a video call with his ministers, and he made sure to record this conversation, and he picked up the phone and he told Pashinyan that he's busy and he will call him later in the middle of the war. That was a clear sign for me that Russia is not gonna intervene diplomatically to stop this war as he did in 2016 when Serge Sarkisian was in power. But during that era, it was totally different. The leadership was different, and geopolitical coalitions was different. Armenia was still in the Eurasian sphere, and but under Pashinyan, he started to change this geopolitical stance of Armenia towards the EU and towards the NATO. So, of course, this war comes, and it's a slap on the face of Pashinyan, but not only Pashinyan, it's a slap on our face. Because, in my opinion, and maybe some people would feel depressed now, but I'm very honest with your audience. We are a nation that is suffering from very deep feelings now that we lost the war, and we are humiliated, and we're not able to do anything about it now. And in my humble opinion, restoring the lands that we lost now requires now maybe a decade or two strong leadership, which could be a very strong military leadership, and to build a very strong national army equipped with sophisticated weaponry, technology, and help from the diaspora.
So I mean, that's the next question that we could roll into right now, because I remember when the agreement was first signed, you were very vocal about how you think what Pashinyan did as mistakes, and you were very vocal about how he thought he bet on the wrong people to help us. You did, however, mention that you think that it was a question of ignorance and mistrust. However, you did say that you much prefer Pashinyan to stay in power and make some administration changes than to have what you had called the old oligarchs back in power. Being that now we're in February and a few months have passed and things have further developed, do you still feel that way, or do you think that possibly the old prime ministers returning instead of Pashinyan would be more beneficial to the safety of Armenia?
Actually, when the war ended, there were a lot of details that were missed. So we were trying to figure out what happened, and in my opinion, Pashinyan to stay in power, but to recalculate his policies was a better option, like at the end of the war.
Right.
But now we are seeing two different developments, for example. One, he called for snap parliamentary elections, and he prepared, he asked the opposition, and he started consultation, etc. And this was, for any objective observer, he tried to absorb the anger of the people who were calling for his resignation. So he said, he told the people, okay, I'm going to snap parliamentary elections, and if my opponents win, then it's fine. If I win, then I have a majority again.
Right.
I support that if he wants to go to a snap parliamentary elections, and if the people choose him again, then we deserve everything that happened to us. I'm sorry, if the people choose a person again who led the Armenian nation on her knees, then these people deserve what happened to them, right? This is how it's called. But when he called for a snap parliamentary elections, and only a week or 10 days ago he comes and says no more snap parliamentary elections because there is no popular demand, then he manipulated again the people. He absorbed the anger of the people, so because there were protests happening, tens of thousands of people in the streets, he calmed the street, and then he went back to a dictatorial style of leadership. This is one. Two, one of his MPs who works for him, I forgot even her name because I have to write down names. I don't remember names usually. She was very vocal of criticizing the nationalist Armenians and trying to tell the Azerbaijanis, don't listen to these nationalist Armenians who are calling to restore their territories again in Nagorno-Karabakh, because the real policy of Armenia is Nikol Pashinyan, and we're not going to make any war again to restore our territories. This is blatant treason. If you open a dictionary and you look to the definition of treason, if this is not treason, then I don't know what can we call again treason. So I am for removing Nikol Pashinyan from power, and some people, I don't care what would call this, if he don't want to step aside, he should be removed from power.
So even if that means that someone that you had a specific disdain for, like Robert Kosharyan, so you would prefer having Robert come back than having Pashinyan stay in leadership?
Look, I would be very honest with you, okay? I would say I was very ignorant about Kocharyan, and I was also had the propaganda or the media influenced me as well.
Right.
Of course, I'm pretty sure that under Kocharyan or Seyed Sarkisyan there were lots of corruption, but in my opinion there is no bigger corruption of giving up 30% of your territory to your enemy. That's the biggest corruption. Absolutely. The other side, those who are supporting Pashinyan, they say, okay, maybe we lost the war, but we have democracy. I mean, what kind of argument is this?
Right.
If you lost your apartment and you're kicked out in the streets, and then you have the right to criticize the government, what value does this freedom of speech consist of if you're not able to live in your apartment and in your own territory and you're kicked out? I mean, how can they even equate between freedom of speech or less corruption into losing 30% of your territory? And this is one of the diseases. This is a mental disease, and it's not like you gain it through trauma or stuff. This is the indoctrination that these non-governmental organizations worked on for at least a decade in Armenia. And I also blame Seyed Sarkisyan because these NGOs started to work under Seyed Sarkisyan too.
Is it the NGO that you were talking about that is funded by George Soros that invested $8 billion in the last few years in basically indoctrinating countries that were previous Soviet countries? Is that the main problem with this?
Look, there are at least 3 major organizations working in Armenia. The USAID. The USAID belongs to the CIA, and any program that they adopt in Armenia is meant to serve the national interests of the United States. And the national interests of the United States contradict with the Armenian national interest, period, because we don't live in Cuba, we don't live in Venezuela, or we don't live in the Caribbean or in Canada. This is Armenia, and geographically it's in the Southern Caucasus, and this is a sphere of influence of Russia, okay? So these organizations are working to hit the Russian influence in this area. 2, The second organization is the National Endowment for Democracy, NED. This organization also worked extensively in Ukraine and in Georgia, and it was a similar movement in these areas: the Orange Revolution, the Maidan Revolution, etc., etc. The third are the Soros organizations, and in my, I think I checked the budget of Soros since the 90s, after the fall of the Soviet Union, but I have to check this information again, but it's about $20 billion in former Soviet Union countries invested by Soros organizations. And the mission of these organizations is to create or to indoctrinate the people and spread anti-Russian sentiments. And look, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be critical of Russia. Right. If our interests tell us to be critical of Russia, that's fine. But when you are a small country and you're besieged by two hostile states and your armament, training, and security is dependent on Russia, then when you turn your country into an anti-Russian satellite, then you're shooting on your own feet. This is not a rocket science. This is ABC of geopolitics. And this is what Pashinyan did. So whether he, on purpose or not, did what he did, this is treason at the end of the day, because he gave up our territory forever, and he signed up on a surrender deal in the mid of the night, like a thief, like before even calling his foreign minister, before even telling the people that he's going to sign. Although on the same day that he signed the document, only at 3 p.m. Central European time, he was sending tweets and he was writing on Facebook that we were going to win this battle in Shushi. And all these incidents that I'm telling you, this guy is a pure manipulator. He manipulated us. He gave us the impression that we were going to win this war. Although I was checking the advance of Azerbaijan, and they were very clever in their military strategy, while our positions were very weak. Our militaries were like a rabbits in the middle of nowhere, or on the mountains,
in open spaces,
against one of the strongest drone weaponry in the world, Turkish Bayraktar and Israeli drones.
So, and for the Israeli drones, like, we all know how much Israel played an important role in helping Azerbaijan. You would think that, you know how they say the enemy of my enemy is my friend. You would think that countries like Iran, the Syrian government, Lebanon's resistance party, I know I can't say the name because I'll get blocked, with the yellow flag. We know how vocal they've been against the Turkish government, against Azerbaijan, against Israel. Why didn't we see more involvement or more help coming from them, even though that's our position is a very important geopolitical position that could give more access to Israel through Turkey, through Azerbaijan, to attack Iran eventually. Why did we not see more help? I know that Pashinyan isolated us from them, and I know Pashinyan, you know, voted many times against Russian interests. However, you would think that countries like Iran, like Russia, would put aside basically the positions that Pashinyan is taking, and they would do it for their own benefit. So why didn't they get involved, even though it would have benefited them?
In the Iranian case, there are a few things we need to discuss. One, Iran is sanctioned by United States, and it cannot make a lot of transactions and a lot of problems happening in Iran. The only gate for Iran to the outside world or to maneuver the sanctions is Turkey. Turkey was the only country which stood beside Iran during this process of the American sanctions. So this is the first reason Iran doesn't want to antagonize Turkey. The second point is 25% of the Iranian population are of Azeri ethnicities, and they are very nationalists. And we have seen during the war, like tens of thousands of them were calling the Iranian side to have a clear position on the side of Azerbaijan. Although Azerbaijan is an advanced satellite state of Turkey and Israel, and it's a spying spot against Iran. But Iran was in a very difficult situation that it has to calculate its own national interests first. If Iran intervenes, then Israel and Azerbaijan, they will provoke or mobilize the 25% of the Azeri people who live inside Iran, which is in the northern side of Iran, and they could create some sort of a uprising or revolution against the Iranian regime.
Do you think the Iranian regime? Oh, sorry, continue.
Iranian. The second thing is Armenia never asked for help from Iran or from any other party. Pashinyan was calling Angela Merkel during the war. Angela Merkel has no interest to help Armenians. She has very good relations with Turkey, despite the rhetorical disputes between the both sides, but Turkey and Germany are in good terms. Likewise with Canada. So they have no interest to intervene on the side of Armenia, and Armenia doesn't have that important geopolitical weight in this war. No one wants to intervene on the side of Armenia to antagonize Turkey or Azerbaijan, which has a huge amount of gas, and this gas is coming through Georgia to Turkey. From Turkey, some of them is distributed to Israel and to other countries. So if we compare, like if we do some very simple calculation, and why would anyone intervene on the side of Armenia, economically speaking? And two, why would they intervene on the side of Armenia when the Prime Minister of Armenia himself, he doesn't even ask for help from this country or support, and two, he's having better relations with the enemies of these countries. For example, Pashinyan, he opened an embassy in Israel only recently.
Right.
And what is he even thinking about?
What message is he sending to Iran?
Look, it's very simple. Like, you're this small of country, and your east is Azerbaijan, west is Turkey, north you have not the best relations with Georgia, and south you had the good relations with Iran, and then you go and open an embassy in Israel and you anger Iran again. So what did you gain? If you make any decision, you have to calculate the pros and cons of this step. What did Armenia gain from opening an embassy in Israel? Israel sided and will always side on the side of Azerbaijan in this war. So what did we gain from this? Nothing. Not only we didn't gain nothing, we lost a friend, which is Iran,
right,
during this war.
But it seems like Iran and Turkey have very different interests. Obviously, we saw it play out in many different cases, like in Syria. Turkey played a major, if not the biggest role in the demise of Syria. You would think that even if Armenia doesn't, they don't gain anything from protecting Armenia or Armenians' interests, you would think that their disdain for Israel and for Turkey would make them help us. But my question is, why are so many countries, including NATO, including the European Union and the United States, afraid of antagonizing Turkey, other than their geopolitical location? What do they gain from Turkey? And isn't the United States afraid of how Turkey is developing itself to possibly become a superpower?
First of all, Turkey is a NATO state. And being a NATO state, Turkey serves the interests of the United States, whether in Syria, whether in Iraq, whether in other countries. There could be some differences, for example, in the case of the Kurds, or in the case of supporting certain group here or there. But generally speaking, there is a harmony in the foreign policies of the United States. And without green light from the United States in 2011 to Turkey, Turkey wouldn't dare to support all these terrorist organizations in Syria. And the proof of that is a recent interview in 2018 by the former foreign minister of Qatar, Hamad bin Jassim. He gave an interview to the Qatari national TV, and he mentioned that in 2011, the Americans tasked, they didn't ask, tasked Turkey, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia to train and arm the radical jihadists in southern Turkey and then send them to Syria. So there was this coalition of countries who wanted to overthrow Syria, which went bad later because of the intervention of first the steadfastness of the Syrians, then the intervention of Iran and the Lebanese group, the Yellow Flag group, and then Russia. Iran, they differ with Turkey over Syria, but they are on the same page, for example, in Libya. They're on the same page in Yemen. They're on the same page in now in Azerbaijan. So it's not a white and black situation, you know. In some of the files they agree and in others not. But generally speaking, Turkey is the most dangerous country now in the Middle East. And I'm not telling this because I'm Armenian. I'm telling this because, one, Turkey is building one of the strongest army in the Middle East. It's building a very big and strong navy, and you wonder why Turkey is building a navy. Who's going to fight against with this strong navy? And three, it has a fascist ideology, and its roots goes to the Muslim Brotherhood organization that was founded in the 20s in Egypt and then spread it all over the region. And four, it has a popular base. If you go to, I don't know, Pakistan or Tunisia or Algeria or Syria or Iraq, you will always find people who love Erdogan. And these people are not like the minority. They are millions of people. And for example, during the war, the Pakistanis were like, I was very shocked. Why are they this much
We've never
excited?
Had a history with them.
They're very excited to be with Turkey. And Erdogan is a charismatic person. He is using religion in order to, like political Islam, as I mentioned, to mobilize the people. But this would never have happened without the invasions of the United States in the region in the last decade or two. What happened in the last decade or two? The United States literally fucked a lot of countries, and most of these countries were majority of Sunni people. So the Sunni people felt in this region that they are oppressed or defeated or humiliated. So Erdogan came, and his former foreign minister, Davutoglu, if we read his book, he mentions this very clearly, but we don't read books. This is our problem. He says Turkey represents hope for every humiliated Sunni Muslim around the world. We will give them hand to make them victorious again. So this emotional situation that Turkey created in the region, exploiting the American invasions that destroyed these countries unjustly, Turkey filled this vacuum. Turkey came as a strong Muslim, Islamic, Sunni power, telling the people, I'm here to make you repair your pride. And that's how Erdogan, if you follow Erdogan's speeches, it's a medieval style speech. He is very smart, and he knows how to mobilize the people in the region with emotional speeches and sentiments. And unfortunately, we also need to blame ourselves. And when I say we now, I mean the people now, for example, in Syria and Lebanon. Why haven't we been able in the last decades to build a strong national identity to protect ourselves from a Turkish infiltration into our societies and Turkify the people. Now, if you go to your country, for example, in Tripoli, or if you go to my country, to Idlib, you will find more Turkish flags than a Lebanese or a Syrian flag.
You will find also Iranian flags if you go to the south of Lebanon.
Yes.
So we're stuck between, Armenia is basically stuck between Sunnah and Shia clash. And it's much bigger than us. I mean, we're just, you know, a pawn in this. And what I find interesting is that, you know, we see how Turkey has changed Europe and the influence that it has had in Europe and the radicalization that's happening. What's interesting to me is although the European governments, the European countries see this, they're still allowing Turkey into NATO. I don't know where this fear comes from, and do we think that this is going to continue? Do you think that the United States or NATO might eventually turn on Turkey?
Turkey will never turn on against Turkey will never turn against NATO. That's not going to happen. Turkey is one of the most important countries for NATO. It has borders with Europe, and it has borders with the Middle East and with the Caucasus. And in this area is very important for the United States in order to, they need to preserve the minimum level of diplomatic or security relations with Turkey. They tried to remove Erdogan in 2016 through a CIA coup d'etat, but the Russians and the Iranians, they rushed to help Erdogan to stay in power because they knew the alternative might be much more American than Erdogan, who is now trying to distribute his nation's eggs in different baskets. Like, he's not only putting in the NATO's, but also in the Russian basket, and he's trying to gain from this side and from this side. But at the end of the day, if Turkey is in front of an exam to choose between the United States and Russia, they will always choose the United States in this regard. And the United States until this moment has a very big military base inside Turkey, and there is a strong military relations between the both sides. There are military trainings together. And at the end of the day, also don't forget that Turkey has a very big community in Europe. And when Erdogan tells his people to demonstrate for him, tens of thousands of people go in the streets here in Europe, waving Turkish flags and Erdogan's pictures, etc., etc. Even Angela Merkel, she can't ask tens of thousands of people to demonstrate for her in Germany. He can. And a few years ago, he opened the biggest Turkish mosque in Köln, in Germany. It's really crazy. He bought his own security with him. He didn't accept the security from the German state. He brought his state security from Turkey to Germany. And Germany is always very tolerant towards Turkey. As I mentioned, around 5 million Turkish people live in Germany. And two, Erdogan, Germany, every time dares to criticize Germany, Erdogan opens his borders, and then hundreds of thousands of people come to Greece. And Greece is already economically under a huge burden.
Right.
And nobody stays in Greece. They all come later to walk to Western Europe. So he weaponized the refugee crisis so that he can blackmail the Europeans or the European Union. So he has a lot of weapons in his hands. And don't forget that Turkey is playing instrumental role now in Syria. If today Erdogan withdraws from Syria, I guarantee you the entire conflict would be resolved in a few months, maximum few months, okay?
Right.
So for the Americans, if they don't agree with the Russians on certain compromise or a deal in Syria, it doesn't make any sense for them to call for Erdogan to withdraw. So the presence of Erdogan forces and mercenaries in Syria also is in the interest of the United States, because the United States has maximum of 2,000 soldiers in Syria. But Erdogan, he trained and armed maybe 100,000 mercenaries in Syria, including Al-Qaeda forces, and it's his own Turkish forces in Syria. And only today, this is a report that came only today from the city of Idlib, which is occupied by Al-Qaeda. Turkey is now building electricity factories or plants in Idlib and connecting this plant into Turkey. This is like a colonization policy, just like Israel is doing. But the difference between Israel and Turkey is when Israel occupies an area, let's say the Golan Heights, the people of this area, whether they are Muslims or Jews or Christians, Israel cannot Judaize, I don't know how to say this, these people, Tawhid, we say in Arabic. They can't. These people will preserve their identity, they will preserve their religion. They will never accept Judaism as a religion for them.
Right.
But Turkey, when Turkey occupies Idlib or Jarablus or Afrin, there is first a mutual religion, which is Islam, and two, culturally, Turkey invaded the region so strongly in the last 2 decades through all these Turkish movies, Turkish series, and Turkish programs, and people were very fascinated by the Turkish culture in Syria. So they had they were ready to accept these sentiments or this culture and this what is coming from Turkey. And due to family relations on the border side between Turkey and Syria, people speak also Turkish, so it was easy for them to communicate with them. And now Turkey is there, and it's building universities, building schools, it's building its own manufacturers, its infrastructure, in these areas. And it's Turkifying the people, just like it did during the Ottoman era. And this is the most dangerous thing that is happening in the region, because it will not stop in Syria. It will continue to Iraq, it will continue to Armenia, it will continue to Greece. This is the minimum.
So, I mean, this is going a little bit off topic. As I take it, you, for my own personal curiosity, you stand with the Yellow Party in Lebanon?
I would prefer not to answer this because I would put myself into trouble.
You don't have to answer this. So
I will tell you why. Look, I'm in Germany, and pro-Erdogan lobby groups are working day and night to kick me out of Germany, and they're lobbying against the German government. And I'm receiving daily, not daily, but always letters from the German government. And they even tried to revoke my residence, and I have to go to court now to prove that I can stay in Germany, although I have a job permit. I have 2 jobs in Germany, and I learned the language and everything. And they're waiting me to say one single word about this topic in order to politically use it against me and legally, because in Germany, this Yellow Party is considered a terrorist organization now.
I don't want to get you in trouble, so I'll keep that question for when we have discussions privately.
Yes.
So as Turkey is gaining power and gaining ground and really achieving their goal of pan-Turkism, I know that you had spoken about Armenia's technology sector and how we should be developing our own drone technology, and we had already started, even though it's a little too late. Do you think that developing of drone technology will help Armenia in the future? Is it enough? And how do we fund it? I mean, there's one thing to say, let's develop drones, let's develop technology, but how do we fund it? Is it from creating mobiles and selling that to Egypt, like you had said before? Is it money coming from the diaspora? Or do we reach out to countries like the Emirates, who have a mutual disdain for Turkey, and ask them for help?
Armenia has a strong tech sector, and we have the brains. And I personally can suggest 2 or 3 people who can manufacture deadly drones. Seriously,
I'm very me, right?
Yes, I'm very serious about this. And the thing is, we need to weaponize this technology. And this is not for aggression. This is for defensive measures. When you create such a technology in Armenia, you create a deterrence. most countries who have nuclear weapons, they don't have nuclear weapons because they want to use it against other countries, but because they don't want other countries to attack them. Which is what's happening in North Korea, in Pakistan, in other regions. So having this technology and telling your enemy that you are able to inflict a serious damage, whether inside Azerbaijan or inside Turkey, or if they attack Armenia again, then you will deter them. This is deterrence. 2, this technology that we're talking about is expensive, that's true. I proposed a very small percentage of taxation per year for the Armenian diaspora, but it's maybe not practical, because how can we organize this? So let's dedicate a small fee for anyone who wants to visit Armenia in the airport while we're coming in. I'm sorry, but when I go to Armenia and I'm in the free shop, how much of alcohol do we buy from there? Let's be serious. We buy whiskeys, we buy vodkas for our parents and our relatives. Do we do that or not?
Of course.
I might say, sorry, I spent around $2,000 last time when I was $200 in the free shop because my father wanted some whiskeys for a party that they have. I'm not saying to spend the $200 for that, but if I am ready every time I go to Armenia to pay $100, every time I come in, $100 doesn't break me, and will never break anyone who's going to visit Armenia.
Do you think that would be enough? I mean, if all Armenians, I mean, not every Armenian visits Armenia every year. I mean, even if we impose $100 fee, do you think that's enough? I mean, if Turkey is able to attack countries and to invade countries like Syria, which have, you know, also an immense amount of funding from Iran, what can do we even stand a chance, no matter how much drones we develop?
We sell our softwares, because this technology, the drone, it's not only hardware, it's also software, and a lot of countries, they don't have this software. So selling this software to other countries, selling your technologies that you are creating or manufacturing in Armenia. Mobile was one single example, but you have poor countries now because of the economic situation and the war situation, such as in Syria, where people are now using mostly Xiaomi, very cheap phones for $50 or $70 phones. When you export your technology and you have a good relations with Syria, it's a 24 million market, and you open your horizon. Why do you stay in Armenia? I never seen any Armenian technology outside of Armenia. I don't know. I've been to many airports. I haven't seen any Armenian technology outside, although we're able to improve this technology and we're able to market them. And we have a big diaspora. How big is a diaspora outside of Armenia? 10 million people? Right. Isn't it possible to find headquarters in Moscow, in LA, in Paris, in Berlin, in the major capitals? They are poor people all around the world, and there are Oppo phones now here in Germany that old people use. It's a $70, $80 phones, and they're using it, the old people. This is our market also. We can share this market, and we can sell this technology. And so software is the most important thing here. In Syria, for example, we don't have a drone technology. Why don't we cooperate with Syria? Why don't we, even if it doesn't mean, if it means, it doesn't, like, it's not always about economical or financial benefits. If you sell your technology to Armenia, you also gain military experience from Syria. Syria was fighting these terrorists for almost 10 years.
Right.
So it's a win-win situation. We have to diversify our relations and improve them. Armenian soldiers are in Aleppo now, we know, and they're demining, and that's very good. But it shouldn't stop there. It shouldn't just like be like a picnic for them to demine Syria and go back. No, there should be military advisors in the Armenian embassy, in Syria, in Lebanon, in Iraq, in Jordan, in Emirates, these countries who are also rich. We need to be active on a diplomatic level, but also on the military level, because if we don't start now to build a strong army that is able to deter, I'm not calling now for expansion yet, I'm just saying to deter our enemy, I can guarantee you, and you can post this video after 20 years, we will lose more territories.
100%.
To
But
Azerbaijan and
it
Turkey.
starts with having a prime minister that does have our best interest at heart. That's where it starts with. And what concerns me and what's kind of funny to me is a lot of his supporters in the diaspora are, you know, people that are very anti-Soros, very anti-neoliberalism, yet they don't see how that is impacting you know, Armenia and our geopolitical position. What do you say to people that are anti-Soros and anti-neoliberals, but support Nicole Pashinyan? And is it a question of ignorance when it comes to politics?
These people exist in my own family too. It's like every time I tweet something or write something about Pashinyan, I receive private messages telling me, we live in Armenia and we know what's going on here. Right. And this guy is doing a great job in Armenia and he improved the economy and he diversified the opportunities. I'm saying let's preserve these achievements of Pashinyan, but at the same time, let's preserve our national security. It's like
what is democracy and an economy if we're not going to have a country left to live in?
This is what I'm trying to say. If I lose this place, what can I do with democracy? Can I eat democracy? It's unbelievable how people are misled, how people are becoming naive in politics, including, as I mentioned, members of my family who tell me Pashinyan is the savior in Armenia and that he will like bring Armenia on her knees again on the economic level, etc., etc. And what I'm trying to say is, let's suppose Pashinyan is a genius on an economic level, which he is certainly not. Yeah. But if you're not being realistic with your neighborhood and you're saying that his fan base and his MPs are saying we share more with Azerbaijan and Turkey than with nationalist or fascist Armenians, how many times I've been called the fascist on Twitter by my fellow Armenians because I criticize Pashinyan, and without any, like, where is, just show me one statement of me when I'm promoting for fascism in Armenia or elsewhere. But this is a very cheap neoliberal technique of silencing people. If you disagree with them, you're a fascist, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're a radical right-wing, I don't know, or I'm paid by Kocharyan because he's sending me pizzas and I didn't even know the story of it. Somebody like told me somebody told me you paid with pizzas by Kocharyan, and I really had to Google it. What the hell does it mean? Because I didn't know that Kocharyan maybe was distributing pizza somewhere some years ago.
Everybody knows Kocharyan is funded by Domino's.
Not the best pizza.
Listen, I get the same, right? You're preaching to the choir. I mean, I've been on Twitter for 4 months now, and I've already gotten a bunch of messages saying that I'm paid by Kocharyan, which I'm like, I'm doing this for free. If somebody's paying, let me know. But people that are paid, since we're on that topic, I see that you get a lot of flack from certain journalists that are planted in Armenia to spread, you know, to cause political agitation. What do you say to Armenians that praise these foreign journalists that clearly have a vested
Look, my finger is like hitting the table now. We open this discussion.
I mean, there are a few names we could name, but what do you say to those Armenians that instead of listening to someone that has the right interests at heart, such as you, a fellow Armenian, they're listening to these journalists that are just there to cause political agitation and to spread falsities?
Look, I will give you an example from Syria first. When the war erupted, I was 22 years old. And I was also misled by the fact that a lot of journalists won't have the, like, they want the best for Syria and they're here to help us, blah, blah, blah. And I learned the lesson very hard because I was also a journalist, and I realized these people are using our suffering to gain fame, to advance to boost their careers, and to make money. No one is doing this job for free, so forget about it. So my message for the Armenians is, do not let any non-Armenian tell you what is good and what is bad for your own nation. No one knows what is the best for you except you, because you're living in that country for centuries. Not like someone who is coming from Canada, like Neil Howard. I will mention him because this guy has done a very destructive job in the last few years. He played a very destructive role by pumping up or supporting radical jihadi terrorist groups in Syria, who slaughtered tens of thousands of people, killed them with knives, with swords. They raped women. They slaughtered pregnant women. They put them in ovens and burned them. And I'm not exaggerating. These are all documented facts. They were grilling human heads on a barbecue stuff. So we have seen all this during the last years, and Neil Howard was on the side of these people who were supported directly by Erdogan. And now all of a sudden, he came to Armenia after the war. Of course, he blocked me when the war started, and he didn't want me to interrupt his work. And now he is trying not only to tell the Armenians that he wants the best for the Armenians, but also he's creating polarization among the Armenians.
Right.
He's attacking certain Armenians and calling them names, especially influential people. Like, I never attacked him during this time, although I had a serious doubts about this guy. What is he doing in Stepanakert during the middle of the war? This guy is like, he was worshipping Erdogan's policies in Syria. And all of a sudden, he's like with Armenians. Does that make any sense for you guys, those who are following this guy? So I warned certain people in private not to give him any, let's say, sensitive information, any sensitive information, but I didn't launch any campaign against him. That's the last thing I would do. But all of a sudden, a week ago, I am receiving screenshots of people that he's accusing me of being a fascist. Like the same narrative, the same technique of pro-Pashinyan people who want to discredit you just because you're being critical of the president, although they're the guys who say we are for democracy and for freedom of expression. So it's very clear to me that Neil, for example, he positioned himself among some pro-Pashinyan Armenians, and he's trying to agitate problems among the Armenians, to create polarization and to discredit anyone. Like, I call myself a patriot, like I'm an Armenian patriot. I'm not even a nationalist in the sense of a nationalism, but he's trying to portray anyone who is outside this circle as being a fascist, and he's being successful sometimes with some ignorant, I'm sorry, but they are Armenians at the end, so, but they are ignorant.
Right.
But the last charade or circus that he did on Twitter, it was clear that most Armenians have become skeptical of him now, and I hope that if someone sees him in the streets of Yerevan, goes and talks to him very peacefully and records the video. How can he support anti-Armenian mercenaries and jihadists and terrorists in Syria who killed hundreds, if not thousands of Armenians and displaced tens of thousands of Armenians from Syria, and now be with the Armenians? That's, in my opinion, that's not possible. And that's why I say he might be spying. I'm not saying he's a spy, but a person like him, we should raise questions about him. We should investigate what the hell this guy is doing in Armenia with all this historical background that he has.
I personally think he should be tried in court, along with Pashinyan, and he has a very huge role to play in all that's happened in Armenia in the last few months. But I want to thank people like you that do this without any type of, monetary interest, and you're out there spreading the word, and we appreciate that. I know you had told me you only have an hour. Do you have more time, or can we have 10 more minutes?
Yes.
Okay, great. I wanted to ask you, what can we do, number one, as diasporans, to help the current situation in Armenia? Is there something that we could do other than raising awareness online about basically to help Armenia change leadership? Can we be effective from where we are?
First of all, we need to have Armenian nationality. This is the first step. If
it's
Armenian...
the buzzword now, though, Kevork. Like, I say I'm an Armenian nationalist, and automatically that means that you're racist. That means that you're a homophobe.
No, I mean Armenian nationality passport.
Oh, okay.
We need, if we are 10 million people in the diaspora and we have an Armenian passport and we are able to vote. This is how we change the situation in Armenia. And Armenia is giving a facility for us as a diasporans to have an Armenian passport. We need to lobby like this because we love every single Armenian all around the world. But if you insist to have a person who is sending Armenia into execution, if the Armenian genocide was the Armenian Nakba, then what happened in the last few months was the Armenian Naksa. This is not less of a pain than the Armenian genocide. We didn't lose 1.5 million, we lost around 5,000. However, what has happened is it paves the way for the extermination, complete extermination of the Armenians, because one, we lost our geopolitical might, we lost our friends in the region. Now Russia has a strong presence even in Karabakh, instead of, like, they were accusing the previous presidents of being pro-Russia, but even the previous presidents didn't dare to plant Russian forces in Nagorno-Karabakh.
Yeah.
3, we have a very weak leadership that is incompetent, that has nothing to do with geopolitics, that is manipulative, that is driving the people into convictions that we can solve our problems with the fascist powers such as Turkey and Azerbaijan with compassion and love. So we are signing our own death penalty. If we want to change, make a change in Armenia, we need to start by ourselves. We need to have an Armenian passport. We need to participate actively, not passively, in the Armenian politics. We need to vote, and vote for the people we believe can restore at least the pride of the Armenians after a very humiliating defeat. That it's unimaginable how much we were humiliated in this last war, and I don't care if the Azerbaijanis are laughing, because I need to tell this to the Armenians for them to feel responsible, because all of us are responsible of what happened in Armenia. And if anyone who is a political activist or has understanding of the current affairs, they should involve or engage in the Armenian politics. And it should start from me, and I have plans for that. I want to have a fingerprint, something to do in Armenia. I'm networking now with a lot of people, and but in the future we need to be also underground. It doesn't mean that permanently living in Armenia, but we need to go there in Armenia. We need to have an influence underground in Armenia, and we need to vote in Armenia for parties or individuals that we think they can build, number one, a strong army in Armenia, and that requires a person who has an experience in military operations, in tactics, in strategies, in fourth generation of asymmetrical warfare, in guerrilla warfare, in drone warfare, etc., etc., etc. But if you bring someone who never seen anything than some of these yellow newspapers that he was writing for, and he thinks that Trudeau's socks maybe will save him in Armenia, then sorry, fuck off. This guy is not competent, and what he did in Armenia, it is treason, and there is no other
There's no doubt about
explanation
it.
for what he did for the Armenians.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing about the voting and the diasporans, I come from Lebanon, as you know, and I have a Lebanese passport. And when elections come up, certain political parties in Lebanon reach out to diasporans because obviously, you know, the dynamics, the population when it comes to religion has changed in Lebanon. And a lot of, let's say, Lebanese Christians live outside of Lebanon. It's also a country where the diaspora is much bigger than the actual number of people living there, the population. So they actually pay us our tickets and, you know, money to go and vote for them. And I remember I went, and I believe it was 2008. I went and I voted for the party that I think should be representing Lebanon and to have seats, and the party that really represents my interests. I mean, it's completely different when it comes to Lebanon because there's different religions, there's different sects. Armenia shouldn't have that problem. I mean, Armenia should all be united with the common interest of, you know, one people, one nation. It's not a party where it has Shia, Sunni, Christian, Jews. It's a country which is like majoritarily like what, 95% apostolic Christians. I don't see how we don't all share the common interest of protecting our borders. And our prime minister has made it super clear that he does not have the protection of our borders as a priority. I mean, we're concentrated on building amusement parks right now and banning cigarettes while driving. These are priorities. I
want to ask a question, Jessica. I want to ask a question to you followers as well, because I'm not aware of it. Maybe someone can comment. The electoral, I'm not well aware about the electoral system or the voting system in Armenia. So are the Armenians who live in diaspora and have an Armenian passport, are they able to vote in the Armenian embassies or not? Because in Lebanon, in the case you mentioned, you need to travel to Lebanon to vote. So are we able, in Syria, for example, their presidential elections are underway in June of this or July of this year. So Syrians can vote in Syrian embassies. So are the Armenians able to vote in Armenian embassies outside of Armenia? That makes our job much more easier.
Yeah, and are they able to get an Armenian passport without traveling to Armenia?
Yes, of course. Of course, in the Armenian embassy. And in 3 months, you receive your passport. It's so easy and fast procedure.
So, guys, everybody that's listening, you don't even have to travel to Armenia to get your Armenian passport. I mean,
you need your birth certificate and your baptism certificate that you're baptized in an Armenian church, and you can apply for an Armenian citizenship. That's easy.
What about the people that are not baptized?
That's another question. I don't know. I was baptized not like I was how many months old? I don't know. They just baptized me, and I have that document.
No, I know that a lot of I know that a lot of Armenians from Russia, let's say, don't have are not baptized. Not all of them, but I know that there's a percentage. So that's why I'm asking, because we do have a huge amount, like a big amount of population in Russia that could make all the difference when it comes to voting. Does anybody have an answer as if we could vote through the embassy? We know we can get the passport through the embassy, but I called them, you need to go to Armenia to collect the passport. Somebody wrote that in the comments. So I guess with
No, in Syria, for example, people apply and they receive it in the embassy. So they do this procedure. I don't know what about other embassies, but in Syria, I'm pretty sure that you can apply in the embassy, and it takes like 3 months, and then you receive it in the embassy.
The passport for the diaspora does not let you vote. Someone's writing that. I don't know the official answer, and I think everyone is going to give their opinion on it, but I think that's something that we could definitely look into.
Let's ask, be sure, and we post about it. If I know any concrete information, guys, I will post it on Twitter, and I will share it with you. Also, Jessica, you can also share it on your Twitter account, okay?
Absolutely. So they're saying in Middle East, they provide passports in embassies, not in North America, but not everywhere else. So, okay, so if you're in Lebanon or in Syria, you could apply for Armenian passport and get it through the embassies. But if you're in Canada or the United States or Germany, I'm guessing you're not able to. So guys, everybody that's going to Armenia next time, make sure that you apply for the passport.
Yes.
And citizenship.
Maybe you can apply in the embassy, and in your next visit to Armenia, you can pick up your Armenian passport.
You can pick up, but that's definitely something that we could look into. Dual citizenship allows you to vote in elections, though.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing once you have it, you are able to vote in elections. So one last question before I let you go, even though like where do you see Armenia in the next 5 to 10 years? And be honest, if you think
the situation is very dire, and it's very, very bad right now. It depends what are we going to do now in these few months. What are our priorities? Is our priority to preserve the new liberal approach of Pashinyan on a domestic level, which could have some economical benefits for the people, but at the same time, we will most certainly lose more territories in the future, or we will shift a little bit more towards a patriotic nationalist leadership that has the national security of Armenia as a priority, and then the domestic level as a secondary level of interest. So it's completely dependent on the current leadership or the decision of the people to remove Pashinyan or keep him in power. If he stays, there could be business relations with Azerbaijan, Turkey, and more, let's say, business relations. And we could see further domestic economic development, but make no mistake, this is like the example of Greece and the European Union. When you are a small country with a small economic might, then your neighbors will always absorb you into their economies. You will not be able to compete with them. And at the end of the day, the influence of Turkey and Azerbaijan will be greater on you if we go in this approach, or we will go into more, let's say, less democratic, more patriotic, more nationalistic. National security comes at first,
right,
but that requires removing Pashinyan from power. I most certainly would choose the second. National security comes first, because I want the territory of my ancestors to stay. I want these 3 million people to live there in peace and harmony without losing this territory, because in my opinion, I mean, just give it 20 years. If this approach continues of what Pashinyan is doing in Armenia, in 20 years, Azerbaijan and Turkey will start to eat territories, just like Israel is doing, slowly, 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 until the complete annihilation and ethnic cleansing of the Armenians from our historical homeland.
And that's the message that I really wanted to send across to the Armenian liberals that have this ideology that keeps saying that we have no choice but to make peace with the enemies. We have no choice but to bend because they're stronger and they have more funding, and we have no choice because of where we're located. Armenia has survived for thousands of years.
That's That's a defeatist mentality that were planted in their heads.
They think it's realistic, right? We see it as defeatist, but I'm playing devil's advocate. They think that's more of a realistic approach, not a defeatist approach. But how do you explain thousands of years of survival through a nationalistic approach? So I know it's a different time, but we've always had enemies surrounding us. Even before we were a Christian nation, we had
Yes.
Barsiknera, we even had Greeks turned on us. You know, I
Yes.
mean, we've always had to maintain a strong political and defense. And I think that right now, like you said, tightening relationships with Russia, and also not only relying on Russia, but relying on countries that are maybe aligned with Russia, reaching out and, you know, building relationships, rebuilding with Iran, building
Jessica,
with
I just
China.
want to mention something. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No.
Look, it's very important for Armenia to diversify its relations. I'm not against having good relations with the European Union. You can have a good business relationship with the European Union, educational level, economic level, etc. I'm just talking about the geopolitical stance of Armenia. It shouldn't be shifted towards the NATO. That's the only thing. In military terms and in geopolitical terms, we need to be on the Eurasian side, not on the NATO side, due to geopolitical reasons, and not because I love the eyes of Putin or I hate the eyes of, I don't know, Angela Merkel. This is pure rational and realistic approach what I'm trying.
مش كرمال عيونهم.
إيش كمل عيونهم.
Kevork, I swear to God, you're so, you know, you gave us so much insight, and there's so much more to dig. I hope we get to do this again, because I think your word is gospel, and I think that you have a lot of insight when it comes to the Middle East, when it comes to Europe, that a lot of people don't. And I think that this is bigger than just Armenia. We are definitely just a small piece of the puzzle of a bigger scheme of things that's happening. And having people like you be so vocal really changes, you know, changes the rhetoric, really helps us. And I know that you receive many death threats. I know that, you know, what you do is heroic. I know where you live and how you've actually had a physical threat happen. So you're a hero, and I hold you in such high regards, and I think everybody watching feels the same. I want to thank you, and I'm going to share all your information of where people could follow you, and we hope that you continue your activism and your journalism. You're so important. And if there's anything you want to add before we go, the stage is yours.
I'm really touched by your words, Jessica. I really appreciate that you host me on your channel, and I hope we can continue this discussion and cooperation. And I hope our fellow Armenians would visit Armenia soon in summer, and I hope we can meet also in Armenia during the summer there. And just last message, like I was so close of paying my life for what I say and what I believe in. So comparing to what I do and what these so-called experts say to you, please, we have like we love our nation. We were born and raised on this love. So don't let anyone who comes from, I don't know where, 12,000 kilometers away to teach you and preach you what is good and bad for your country. That's it.
Kevork, merci շատ, շնորհակալություն, իրավ վերջին խոսքերը հայերենով ասենք, ամեն մարդ, որ հայրենասեր ճիղմ ունի, մեր դարբերությունները մեկ կողմ տնենք եւ իրարու հետ միանանք, որ իշխանությունը փոխենք Հայաստանի, որովհետեւ այս իշխանության հետ դեղը բիչի հասնենք եւ մեր հայրենիքը եւ մեր կյանքը վտանգի մեջ է։ Շատ լուրջ հարց է եւ գուզեմ ամեն մարդ լուրջ առնի այս հարցը եւ շատ ավելի կարեւոր է քան թե բզդիկ տարբերությունները որ ունենք ուրեմն ամեն մարդ հաջիս միանանք եւ նույն նպատակը ունենանք եւ նույն հայրենասիրությունը ցցնենք
Ուսամ մեզի շատ մարդիկ կլսեն այսօր եւ քանի շատ կարեւոր է այս շրջանին մեկը մյուսին այսինքն փերանը չի կոչե քանի որ ուրիշ տեսակ մենք կմտածենք որ կամ թուն ֆաշիստես թուն ասես թուն անես չեմ գերաս մենք հայերում մեջ ուր դերեն ելավ ասիկա ես հիմա 34 տարեկան գլամ որ մին աս մեկ տարին է որ գտեսնեմ որ հայերում մեջը ասպիսի իրավու accusation-ներ կփաժնենք որ քանի Փաշինյանին չէ սիրեցում պետք է չեմ գերը Թրամփի մարտի դլած չէ Քոչարյանի մարտի դլած մենք մեգումը մարտը չենք մենք միան գվախնանք այսինքն Հայաստանի վրա եւ չենք ուզել որ ասպիսի շատ համար սխալներու պատճառով լման Հայաստանը գործընծնենք քանի մենք առաջին այսինքն մեծ եղերնը 1.5 միլիոն մարդ արդեն զոհեցինք ասիկա գնալալ երկրորդ եղերնը լամեզի այսինքն պետք է հիմա կարդանանք չեն այսինքն շատ ժամանակ չունենք 50 տարի չի գա ջերմեսը արդեն Էրդոգանի կանալներում որն իրենց 2050-ի մապը գտնեն որ իրենք ու պիտ հասնեն ու ինչ պիտենեն մենք նստել ենք ինչ բաներում ասենք խոսենք որ չեմ ուզել շատ դիտելի մեջ մտնել
քանի այսինքն social մշակութական նյութերու մասին
խեք գնալիք բաները խոսենք որ այսինքն մենք գիտենք որ Ադրբեջանը այսինքն վարվելիքա մեզի մերցնե մենք բզդիկ նյութերու մասին նստել ենք խոսենք որ Հայաստանի մեջ քիչ մահալերս ամոթ եղավ այսինքն մեզի
այո ամոթ եղավ որովհետև այդ բաները ավելի կարևորություն կտան կոր քան թե մեր հայրենիքը եւ մեր Հայաստանը ուրեմն Մերսի շատ Kevork շնորհակալություն որ եկար եւ հուսամ թե մոդադենեն իդ կարենանք անել ուրիշ լայվը եւ շարունակենք որովհետեւ ամեն օր նոր բաներ գվադահի գոր նյուզը չի վերջանար ուրեմն մերսի շատ եւ հուսամ ամեն մարդ enjoy-երավ ամեն մարդ սիրեց լայվը եւ I'll talk to you soon
Talk to you soon guys
Okay, ցտեսություն
Ciao ciao